My daughter had set out a simple dinner spread, and the four of us were barely seated when Travis cleared his throat. He leaned back like he owned the place and said, "Since we're all here, I figured we should talk about the boat transfer. Ray already promised it." The words dropped so casually that my fork paused midway. My wife glanced at me confused. My daughter blinked at her husband as if she'd misheard, but Travis pressed on. "He told me months ago. Said it after a couple drinks. Said he'd pass it down to the guy actually using it." My daughter shifted, torn between us. "Did you really say that Dad—" A slow breath kept my voice steady. "No, that never happened." Travis let out a short laugh. "Come on, Ray. You don't remember you said you were done with it, that I could put it to work." He always knew how to lace guilt into a sentence, how to sound wounded enough to sway the room. "I've been trying to get a small charter business going," he continued. "But if he wants to keep it tied up forever, that's his call." The look my daughter sent me wasn't angry, just uncertain. That uncertainty cut deeper than anything he'd said. My wife spoke next. "Maybe we can talk through this calmly. Maybe there's a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Travis shot back. "I'm trying to build something here. He knows that. He said he'd help." That part stung because he had asked for help before. Not the boat, other things, and I'd always stepped in. Perhaps that gave him the confidence to invent this entire story. A vibration sounded on the table. My phone. The caller ID showed Foss Harbor Marina. I answered. "Mr. Carter, we need to inform you your boat was moved outside the designated safe zone a short while ago. Conditions are rough today. This is a violation notice." My grip tightened. "Was anyone authorized to use it?" "No, sir. We don't have anyone logged except you." Travis's gaze shifted away the moment he heard the Marina's name. My chest warmed with a kind of anger that didn't flare. It settled heavy and certain like a door locking from the other side. Ending the call, I returned to the table. The room waited. "Someone took the boat out," I said. "Without permission." Travis opened his mouth, closed it, then shrugged. "Maybe someone else did. Boats get moved all the time." My daughter looked at him carefully, this time, not me. Something flickered across her expression, a question she wasn't ready to speak. No lecture would change what had already formed in that room. Years of stepping back had built this moment. Fighting now would only make me look defensive, and he knew it. That was his advantage push, until I either exploded or stayed still. Dinner went cold. Conversation thinned into stiff small talk. Travis carried himself like a man who'd scored a point. My wife tried to smooth things over, but her eyes kept drifting my way, searching for something she couldn't quite read. Once the plates were cleared, I grabbed my jacket. No announcement, no confrontation. "Heading out," I said. My daughter reached for my arm. "Dad." "Another time," I murmured. Not harsh, just done. The hallway was narrow, and his voice followed me with a soft, mocking lilt. "You know, Ray, sooner or later you'll see I'm right about this." I didn't answer. The front door clicked shut behind me, muffling whatever else he had to say. The drive back to North Tacoma felt longer than usual. Every turn sharpened what had happened at my daughter's place, Travis's tone, the way my daughter hesitated, the look my wife gave me, like she was trying to weigh two versions of the same man. My phone chimed while I pulled into the driveway. An email from Foss Harbor. The subject line carried a cold formality, notice of violation. The message spelled out the risk, the potential fines, and the possibility of suspension if the boat caused damage. Years spent building and repairing hulls at the Tacoma shipyard had drilled one rule into me: responsibility on the water isn't optional. Seeing my name at the top of that notice felt like a stain I didn't earn. My wife stood near the kitchen doorway after I stepped into the house. She held a dish towel, twisting it slowly. Ray, she said. Maybe you should think about what Travis said. He's trying. He wants to get his life moving. A long exhale settled in my chest. He lied, I answered. I never promised him anything. She avoided my eyes. I just don't want tension. Maybe there's a middle way, a gesture. A gesture. That word stuck like a burr. Over the years, gestures from me had turned into expectations from others, not because they were unkind, but because I let the pattern settle. My silence had taught them something I never intended. After she walked away, my phone lit up again. Messages from a couple of my daughter's friends. Heard you changed your mind about the boat, Ray. Hope it works out. Another. Travis said you two talked. Guess things got complicated. Complicated. That was one way to describe someone rewriting my decisions for his benefit. Those texts weren't attacks, but they snapped the balance. A story had taken shape without me in it. Isn't that how families fracture? One misunderstanding becomes the seed, and the rest grows from assumptions. I stepped out to the front yard, needing space. The garage door was half open from earlier, so I sat on the small step just outside it. Hands rested on my knees, and the evening air cooled the heat still sitting under my ribs. The world didn't feel dramatic, just slightly off like a drawer that wouldn't close all the way. Footsteps approached from across the driveway. Marvin Hale raised a hand in greeting before settling next to me on the step. He always moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent decades on the water. You look like a man chewing on something tough, he said. Family stuff, I replied. Someone took the boat out today, without my say. And now there's a pile of stories about what I supposedly promised. Marvin grunted. People don't realize how fast things get dangerous out there. Had a fella lose his whole bowline once because his nephew wanted to impress some girls. Nearly killed 3 people. He paused long enough for the weight of it to land. Boats aren't toys. They're responsibilities. Whoever took yours, he did more than cross a line. He put your name on the hook if things went bad. Hearing that from him sank deeper than anything Travis had said. His voice wasn't dramatic. It carried the blunt truth of someone who'd zipped too many body bags after avoidable accidents. You're not wrong, I murmured. Marvin scratched his chin. You strike me as someone who lets folks slide to keep the peace. Nothing wrong with keeping the temperature down, but there's a point where being decent turns into leaving the door open for trouble. A small nod answered him. The comment wasn't judgment, it was recognition. Travis ever done something like this before? He asked. Memories pushed forward. Times he'd borrowed gear from my shed. The afternoon he brought guests onto the dock and spoke like he was giving them a tour of his future charter boat. The day he told my daughter that I'd eventually give the boat to them because it made sense. Those moments had seemed harmless then. Now they lined up like markers leading straight to this mess. Yeah, I said, more than once. Marvin studied my face. Then this isn't about a boat. It's about a man thinking your boundaries don't matter. Truth has a way of tightening the air around you. That line landed hard enough to leave a pulse in my ears. Be careful, Ray, he added. It only takes one wrong turn out there for a tragedy. And if he's using your boat without sense or training, you're the one they look at first. The thought cut deeper than pride. Lives had been lost over smaller risks. A man can survive insults, but he doesn't walk away clean from someone else's recklessness carrying his name. Marvin slapped his palms on his thighs and stood. You need anything, you call. Don't let this simmer too long. A call came early the next morning while I was pouring coffee. The number belonged to a man who kept a small sailboat near mine at Foss Harbor. Ray, just so you know, he said your son-in-law's been on that boat more than once. Brought a couple buddies down there last month. Thought you were cool with it. The cup nearly slipped from my hand. I wasn't told anything, I replied. He hesitated. Well, folks around here think you're handing the boat over soon. Word's been floating around. Hearing that tightened something low in my stomach. Not anger, more like uncertainty creeping into places I didn't expect. Someone spreading a rumor was one thing. A rumor that fit perfectly with Travis's story was another. After the call ended, I stared at the counter, wondering how long I'd been letting things slide, without noticing how far it had gone. Another message arrived around 10, this time from a younger manager at the Marina. Mr. Carter, just FYI, your son-in-law stopped by a while back, asking questions about updating ownership records. Said the boat would be in his name soon. The kid didn't say it with malice. It sounded like he assumed I already knew. Did he show any paperwork? No, sir. He just talked like it was already happening. A notification buzzed. This time from our extended family group chat, except I couldn't open it. A message popped up. You no longer have access to this group. The reason appeared beneath it, written by Travis. Removing Ray for now. Too much negativity lately. Negativity. The word sat like a stone in my throat. He'd cut off my chance to respond to correct anything he'd twisted. It wasn't a big deal in itself, but the intention behind it was loud. He wanted to control the narrative. Shrink my voice, make himself the reasonable one. I set the phone down and walked to my study. Years back when I bought the boat, I had put every piece of documentation into a thick folder title registration maintenance records insurance statements. Seeing them lined up exactly where I'd left them brought a steadiness I hadn't felt since the night before. Pulled out the folder, spread the documents on the desk, took pictures of each page, slow and methodical. The violation email from Foss Harbor got saved too. Then notes went into a small notebook, dates, times, the first moment Travis crossed a line, the second, the third. None of it dramatic, just facts that had been ignored for too long. A pattern forms quickly once you stop pretending it isn't there. By noon, I'd reached a decision I needed legal clarity, not to file anything, just to confirm the ground I was standing on. So I drove to Lydia Moore's office downtown. She'd handled the purchase years ago, a sharp woman with a memory for detail and a talent for cutting straight to the point. The waiting room was nearly empty. She waved me in when she saw my name on the list. Ray Carter, she said. It's been a while. What brings you in? Just a question about ownership files, I answered. Wanted to make sure everything is still correct on your end. She nodded. Once, typed quickly, then turned her screen slightly so I could see. Title is clean. You're the sole owner. No co-signers. No transfer requests. And no one besides you has authority to modify the record. A breath left me steady, not shaky. So if someone claimed I promised to hand it over, then it's just talk, she said, and talk means nothing without your signature. Her answer wasn't emotional, but it cut through the fog Travis had been trying to build. She printed a fresh copy of the title and slid it across the table. Keep this in a safe place. And Ray, if someone is pushing you into something, document everything. I already started, I said. Her eyebrows rose, slightly impressed. Good. Don't let anyone box you out of your own property. Happens more often than you'd think. Walking out of that office felt different from walking in. Not triumphant, just clearer. The world hadn't shifted back into place, but at least I knew which way was up. I stepped through the front doors and paused on the sidewalk. Cars moved along the street. People talked. As they passed by, a couple argued near the corner. Normal life went on while my own sense of order rearranged itself inch by inch. The folder tucked under my arm felt heavier than paper. It was proof not just of ownership, but of a boundary that had never been given away. Not once, not ever. My daughter stood near the doorway when I arrived that evening, her hands clasped together as if she were bracing for impact. Dad. Thanks for coming. We just need to clear the air, she murmured. The living room felt tense before anyone spoke. Chairs pulled close, coffee table pushed aside. My wife hovered near the kitchen archway, looking from me to Travis like she was watching two storms track toward each other. Travis sat comfortably in the center of the room, legs crossed, shoulders relaxed. Too relaxed. "Ray," he began, smiling just enough I think we can settle everything tonight. No tension, no drama. He always used words like that, pretend neutrality wrapped around something sharp. "I just want the boat situation handled properly," he continued. "If you're ready to transfer it, we can get started on the paperwork." He looked at the others as he spoke, not at me. Performing, not conversing. My wife touched my arm. "Maybe we can talk through it calmly. No one wants a fight." A breath steadied me. I never agreed to transfer anything. Travis's smile tightened. "Come on, Ray. You keep forgetting this." "I told them already I didn't forget," I said, firmer this time. "It never happened." His expression shifted in a beat. No smile, no calm. "Look, I get it. Things slip when you get older. It happens. Nobody's blaming you." The words hit like a blunt instrument. Age. Capacity. All the things a man my age works twice as hard to prove aren't slipping. My daughter's eyes darted between us, troubled. My wife raised her palms as if to settle dust in the air. "That's not fair, Travis," she whispered. But the damage was already done. Nobody wants to see their father painted as forgetful, confused. Doubt creeps silently, even when uninvited. Travis leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I just want what was promised. If he doesn't remember saying it, that's okay. We can give him space. But we should honor the agreement." My daughter looked at me with a question buried behind her eyes. "Did you really say something like that?" She didn't speak it aloud, but she didn't have to. A slow burn built in my chest. Not rage, just a heavy ache of disappointment growing roots. This was my family. These were the people I'd shielded, supported, and trusted. To watch them teeter toward believing him, that pierced deeper than anything he'd ever said. Then Travis reached into his pocket. "Okay, since we're being honest, here." He held up his phone and tapped a few times before turning the screen toward everyone. A screenshot, fake text bubbles, a message supposedly from me. "Take the boat. It's yours when you're ready." My daughter let out a small gasp. My wife covered her mouth. "That's what he sent me months ago," Travis said softly. "I didn't want to show it, but he's putting me in a bad spot." My pulse thudded in my ears. The audacity of fabricating a message was one thing. Doing it in my home in front of my wife and daughter was another. "That isn't mine," I said. "It came from your number," he replied. "Maybe you deleted it." "Who knows?" The way he said "who knows" made my jaw clench. He was planting doubt like a seed he expected them to water. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw hesitation flicker across my daughter's expression again. My wife stepped closer to me. "Ray, is it possible you texted something without thinking? Maybe late, maybe?" "No," I said. No raised voice, no explosion, just a simple truth that didn't feel like enough anymore. Travis shrugged. "I'm only trying to make things fair. He promised, I followed through, that's all." He positioned himself as the reasonable one, the patient one, the injured one. And the more he talked, the clearer it became that this wasn't about the boat. It was about control, influence, access. The trust in the room cracked not because of him, but because the two people I loved most didn't know where to place their faith. That fracture cut deeper than any argument. My daughter finally spoke. "Dad, I just need to understand." The appeal in her voice hollowed me. All the years of being solid, reliable, steady suddenly weighed against one fabricated screenshot from a man she'd married. There was nothing left to argue, Nothing to salvage in that moment. Words had twisted so far out of shape they couldn't be untangled in a single night. Staying would only grind the wound deeper. I stood, reached for the keys in my pocket. "I'm going out for a bit." "Dad," she said again, but the softness in her tone came too late to steady anything. Travis opened his mouth, maybe to finish his performance, maybe to savor the moment, but I didn't give him the chance. Stepping past him felt like walking through something thick and unwelcome. The parking lot at Foss Harbor was half empty when I arrived. A few lamps threw soft halos over the docks, and the chill off the water pressed against my jacket. Steps carried me down the ramp toward my slip, and a technician in a Navy uniform straightened when he spotted me approaching. "Evening, Mr. Carter," he called out. "Didn't expect to see you this late." He looked young, maybe 20s, but he recognized me probably from the years I spent fixing things on my own boat. "I've got a question," I said. "About my slip. About who's been around it." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you. There was a guy, your son-in-law, I think, who came by a few weeks ago. Asked me how to transfer boat ownership. Real persistent about it. Wanted me to explain the whole process like it was urgent. The breath I released fogged the air. He asked anything else he wanted to know if we verify the owner's mental capacity when doing a transfer." The tech shook his head. I told him that's not how it works, but he gave me a strange look like he already had a plan. That detail hit harder than I expected. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. "Thanks," I said. "I appreciate you telling me." He nodded and went back to tightening a hose fitting on another boat. My steps kept moving down the dock past the next slip. An older man was sitting on a folding chair near his 30-foot cruiser, sipping something from a thermos. He raised it when he saw me. "Evenin', Ray." I walked over. "Tom, you heard anything odd about my slip?" He blew out a breath. "Well, since you're asking, yeah. Saw that son-in-law of yours bringing a couple fellas down here. They cracked open some beers on your deck like it was a tailgate party. I figured you knew." My stomach tightened. They were drinking on the boat, loud too. One of them stumbled getting off. "Surprised you didn't get a second warning from the Marina." His words lined up perfectly with the violation notice I'd received earlier. Pieces continued to arrange themselves in a way that made everything too clear to ignore. A vibration buzzed in my pocket. Email notification. When I opened it, a cold weight dropped into my chest. No subject line. Only attachments. 3 photos. Travis and 2 friends I didn't recognize, leaning against the rail of my boat. Shorts, sunglasses, open beer cans. Travis holding the wheel like a trophy. The message typed below the photos read, "You should know what's happening before he tells more lies." The sender was anonymous. No signature, no explanation. Someone out there cared enough or feared enough to send proof. I stood still for a moment, letting the truth settle. It wasn't just boundary pushing anymore. It was a string of violations, layered and intentional, each one risking my name, my record, and anyone on the water near him. Footsteps approached from behind. "You got that look," Marvin said, stopping beside me. "The one men get when something snaps." He held out a small notepad. "Thought you might need this." Several lines were scribbled in tight handwriting. Dates, times, notes about a boat in my slip drifting out of line one afternoon when I wasn't there. Then one line circled twice. Possible collision risk, unattended vessel repositioned. Memory sparked the day the Marina called about my boat being out of alignment. I'd assumed it was a wake from a passing vessel or a tug pulling through the inlet. Turns out it wasn't chance at all. Travis had been the one messing with it. If the drift had been worse, another boat could have been hit, and I would have been the one answering questions. Marvin kept his voice low. I didn't want to assume, but something felt off that day. I wrote it down in case you ever needed it. The gesture hit me harder than anything else that evening. Thank you, I said. He patted my shoulder once. People like him don't stop at small things. They always escalate. As he walked back toward his yard, my phone rang. Lydia's name lit up the screen. I answered. Ray, I looked up something you should hear. Someone contacted the office last month asking hypothetical questions about transferring a boat when a current owner might not be able to make decisions clearly. Didn't give a name, but the description matched your son-in-law. The doc under me felt a shade unsteady. So he's trying to build a case that I'm incompetent. That's how it sounded, she replied. Ray, this isn't careless, it's calculated. Our call ended, but the words lingered. A notification popped up seconds later, this time from social media. Travis had posted something public. It's strange when family turns their back on you, especially when you're trying to build a future. Some people hold on to things they don't even use just to keep others down. No names, but pointed enough that mutual friends would assume the worst about me. A couple of comments already chimed in, offering support for him. The manipulation was no longer subtle. It was deliberate. I lowered the phone and looked toward the boat. The hull rocked gently against the lines, steady and faithful, the one thing in this whole mess that hadn't betrayed me. The folder I carried with me rustled in the wind. Ownership papers, maintenance logs, the proof of 30 years of honest work and pride. This had gone so far beyond the argument at my daughter's house. Travis wasn't after the boat. He was after control of the story, the narrative, my standing with my own family. A long breath steadied something deep in my chest. Enough hesitation had passed. Enough explaining. Enough hoping someone else would see through him. Morning settled in without ceremony, and I moved through the house with a purpose that felt new. No more scattered notes. No more hoping this mess would resolve itself. Lydia had been clear, if I wanted protection, I needed documentation. So the kitchen table turned into a command center. Photos of the violation notice, screenshots of Travis's posts, printouts of the anonymous email with the party photos, my notebook filled with Marvin's dates and observations. Every piece fit into a folder thick enough to carry weight in my hands. Lydia called while I sorted through the pile. Ray, remember to label everything. Dates, times, sources. Courts respect order. I'm on it, I said. Her voice steadied something in me. Once you have enough, bring it by. We'll lock down what matters. After hanging up, I slipped the folder into my jacket and headed out to meet Marvin. He'd suggested a place he liked off Ruston Way, a barbecue joint with a faint smell of smoke drifting from the kitchen. He sat near the back, a plate of ribs in front of him, and that same observant calm he always carried. You look like you've been doing homework, he said as I sat down, trying to get ahead of him. Marvin let out a soft grunt. He's working angles through your family. That's manipulation 101. Make you look unreasonable so everyone leans his way. He tore off a piece of cornbread, set it aside, and continued. These types don't come at you head on. They play emotional chess. You're the dependable one, so he paints you as stubborn. He's the ambitious one, so he paints himself as the victim of your caution. Classic tilt-the-room strategy. I leaned back, listening. You've seen this before, too often, he said. People get hurt when someone feels entitled to what they didn't earn. His words sank deeper than he likely intended. Partway through our meal, my phone vibrated, a message from a number I didn't recognize. Call me. It's about Travis. I stepped outside and a shaky voice answered when I returned the call. Mr. Carter. This is, Benji. Benji Torres. I'm a friend of Travis. The hesitation in his voice told its own story. What do you need, Benji? I don't want trouble. But things got out of hand. Travis keeps saying the boat's basically his, and he's planning stuff with it. Like real business stuff. He showed some guy a fake contract, said you'd sign it any day now. A cold pressure pinched the back of my neck. What contract? He drafted something on his computer. Looked official, but he typed your name. Benji rushed the rest. Look, I told him he was pushing too far, that maybe your daughter wouldn't like it. He snapped at me, said I didn't understand family politics. Family politics. The phrase made my teeth clench. Why are you telling me this? Because I think he's losing it, Benji whispered. He was talking about forcing the issue. Said you owe him for the future of his family. I don't want to get dragged into something illegal. You already are, I replied. The call ended with a nervous apology, leaving me staring at the phone. When I returned to the table, Marvin studied my face. That bad he forged a contract. And he's still talking like he owns the boat. Marvin shook his head slowly. Then you need to get ahead of him faster. We left not long after. He offered a pat on the back before heading to his truck. Do what you gotta do, Ray. Don't wait for him to take the next step. On the way to the Marina, my phone buzzed again. This time a text with no sender ID. You're running out of time to do the right thing. Another vibration followed. An alert from the boat's navigation system, unauthorized access detected. Logbook review attempted. Someone was trying to get into my digital records. The lock on the cabin door wasn't enough anymore. At the Marina, I walked straight to the slip. The padlock hung askew, latched but not fully closed. Someone had tried to open it. Maybe succeeded. The steel felt warm from being handled recently. My pulse didn't spike. Something colder took over instead of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Lydia answered after the first ring. I got 2 alerts, she said before I could speak. Ray, do not take that boat out. Not until we secure everything. I'll help you redo every access code and get a new key set, and keep every message you're getting. This is escalating. Understood. And Ray, stay calm, she added. The law is on your side if you document everything. Calm wasn't the right word. Composure, maybe. A hard, level-headed focus that settled where fear should have been. Back home, I spread the folder across the dining table again, labeled each document, saved every message, printed every email. The actions felt surgical, clean, deliberate. Once everything was filed neatly, I shut the folder, fastened the clasp, and placed it on the counter within easy reach. Night had settled by then, and the house felt heavier than usual. I stood near the front door for a long moment, hand resting on the frame, sensing the shift in the air, not literal, but as real as any warning I'd ever felt on the water. A white envelope sat in my mailbox when I stepped outside the next morning. No return address, only the Foss Harbor logo stamped in the corner. The words inside were plain, but heavy, due to repeated safety concerns linked to unauthorized movement of my vessel. The Marina would begin monitoring my slip more aggressively. One more violation, and the boat could be flagged, restricted, or temporarily impounded. My name sat at the top of the notice, tied to actions I hadn't committed. Years of pride in doing things right, following every protocol, respecting the water, reduced to a warning I didn't deserve. The envelope stayed in my hand all the way to the living room, where my wife waited with a tight expression. They're all at Ashley's, she said. They want to talk. That word again, talk. Every time we talked, Travis twisted the ending. When I arrived at my daughter's place, the air felt thick. She stood near the counter, eyes red. Travis paced near the sofa, shoulders raised like he'd been wronged. A couple of her friends hovered near the doorway, clearly invited to witness whatever narrative he planned to perform. My daughter wiped her eyes. Dad, Travis says he feels attacked. He says you're accusing him of things he didn't do. My mouth opened, but Travis jumped ahead. I'm trying, he said, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. I never wanted this to turn into a war. I just want him to respect the agreement. He promised the boat. Now he's making me look like I'm stealing. A slow, cold breath held my chest steady. There was no agreement, I said. None. Travis turned to Ashley dramatically. You see, he's doing it again, pretending he never said it. Then he faced me, jaw clenched. You forget things, Ray? It's okay. It happens with age. Nobody is judging you. That line didn't explode inside me. It hollowed me. My daughter's shoulders curled inward, torn between us, and my wife's hands fluttered helplessly as she tried to soothe both sides. Maybe we're all misunderstanding something, she said softly. Maybe Ray didn't mean to promise, or maybe it wasn't clear Travis seized the opening. It was clear. And I have proof. He pulled out a folder with theatrical precision. I didn't want to show this, he added, though he clearly did. But he's forcing my hand. He placed a printed document on the table, a transfer form, with my name typed neatly across the signature line. The date was backdated. The notary line was blank. It was the kind of forgery someone makes when they don't actually know legal paperwork, but it was polished enough to confuse someone desperate to smooth things over. My daughter stared at it, lips trembling. Dad, what is that? It's fake, I said. None of that is mine. Travis put on an expression that blended pity and frustration. You typed it, Ray. You said you wanted to make things easier but hadn't signed it yet. I saved the draft because I was worried you'd forget. Gaslighting in its purest form, spoken gently, delivered with just enough vulnerability to shift the room. My wife tried to speak, but faltered. Ashley whispered, Dad, please tell us you didn't sign something and forget about it. The cold that spread through me wasn't fear. It was a numb clarity, the kind that follows a deep wound when the body stops trying to fight the pain. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Lydia. I stepped aside to answer. Ray, I found the original contract from your purchase, she said. It has the registered ID timestamp and your verified signature. What he showed them, it's a clumsy edit. Anyone can see the metadata. And he used the wrong revision number. Her words anchored me. Thank you, I murmured. One more thing, she added. Someone tried to look up transfer rules again today. Likely him. That didn't surprise me. Nothing about this man surprised me anymore. I walked back into the room, but before I spoke, Travis switched tactics with the speed of someone who's rehearsed the breakdown. Tears brimmed instantly. I don't know why you hate me, he said, stepping toward Ashley. I'm trying to build a life for us, and your father keeps sabotaging everything. If your family won't support my dreams, maybe I shouldn't be here. He wrapped an arm around her, as if he expected her to crumble. Maybe I should leave, he threatened softly. Maybe that's what he wants. My daughter shook her head, panicked. No, Travis, wait. No one wants that. Every word he spoke sliced deeper into a place I didn't know could still bleed. The noise in the room grew, voices, layered fears tangled, everyone trying to talk over each other. Travis pleading, my daughter shaking, my wife grasping for some middle ground that no longer existed. In the middle of it all, something inside me simply stopped engaging. This wasn't a conversation. It was a stage play, and I'd been cast as the villain in a script he wrote. Without raising my voice, I stepped toward the table, picked up the folder I'd brought the real documents, the evidence, the truth, and tucked it under my arm. No speeches, no accusations. Ashley reached out. Dad, where are you going? Out, I said. I need space. Travis barked a bitter laugh. Running away again, I didn't answer. The road stretched open, and I followed it. The Marina office was still open when I arrived. A couple of fluorescent bulbs hummed overhead, and the scent of engine grease drifted faintly from the maintenance bay. The night shift manager, a stocky man named Harris, straightened when he saw the folder under my arm. "Mr. Carter," he said. "Rough week." "You could say that." I placed the folder on the counter, opened it, and laid out each document title: registration violation notices, screenshots, the anonymous photos, Marvin's notes. His eyebrows rose. "That's a lot." "It's everything I said. I need this logged formally. Every unauthorized access, every safety concern, every attempt to misrepresent ownership." He took a slow breath, then pulled a form toward him. "Walk me through it. One item at a time." For the next 15 minutes, he typed while I explained, not dramatizing. Just facts. Things I'd let slide for far too long. When we reached the part about the forged paperwork, he stopped typing. "Someone tried to pass this off as real, he did?" I replied. "To my family." Harris pressed his lips into a thin line and kept typing. "This is serious, Mr. Carter. Very serious." I know. He printed several new forms and pushed them across the table. "These will lock every authorization to you alone. We'll reset the digital codes, issue new physical keys, and tag the slip. Anyone other than you attempting access gets flagged immediately. No exceptions." Pen in hand, I signed each line. Every stroke of ink felt like reclaiming something I hadn't realized I'd given up. Years of swallowing anger, letting peace take priority, watching people I loved drift under someone else's influence. All of that stood behind me now. As I signed the final page, a realization surfaced, not abrupt, not dramatic, just an understanding settling into place. For years I'd believed staying silent kept my family whole. But silence had given someone else a place to build their lies. That was the cost: my reputation, my dignity, my relationships slowly corroded by patience I mistook for virtue. When we finished, Harris arranged the stack neatly. "We'll file this tonight." "And Ray, you did the right thing coming in." "That's the plan," I said. "Do the right thing." Walking back toward the docks, my phone buzzed. A voicemail, then another, then a third. Ashley's name flashed across the screen. I didn't press play. Another message appeared. Travis this time. "First one, Ray, please let's talk. I didn't mean for things to go this far. Second one, minutes later, you're ruining this family over a boat. Third one, angrier. You think you're better than me, you think you can embarrass me." Each message contradicted the last: apology, accusation, martyrdom. A carousel of tactics. His specialty. By the time I reached my truck, another wave of messages stacked on the screen. Some long, chaotic paragraphs clearly typed by Travis, cycling between blame and desperation. I tapped one with my thumb, watched 2 seconds of him speaking through watery eyes, then closed it and slid the phone into my pocket. No replies, no explanations, no counter-arguments. Some truths don't need to be spoken aloud. They simply stand. The drive home carried an unfamiliar steadiness, the kind I hadn't felt since before all this began. The house was dark when I stepped in, but not unwelcoming, just still. My tools sat where I'd left them in the garage next to the half-finished repair project I'd been picking at for months. The sander, the old teak board, the notes about measurements. I set the folder on the workbench, flipped open my notebook, and reviewed the last entry, something about replacing a brace near the stern of the model boat I'd been restoring. The kind of slow, meticulous work that used to bring me peace. My hands fell back into the rhythm easily, almost automatically. A few pencil lines, a measurement, a tightened bolt. Nothing dramatic, just life continuing. Somewhere in the house my phone buzzed again, another call I didn't answer. A man can't control what others do with their versions of events, but he can protect the part of his life that belongs to him. I'd spent years thinking that bending kept families together. Turns out standing firm does too, just in a different way. I adjusted the brace, checked the alignment, and closed the toolbox. The faint sound of the latch clicking felt like a quiet affirmation, one that didn't need an audience. Work waited. Life waited.